Hey everyone, I'm back, and today we're going to be talking about Apocalypse Now from 1979, directed by Francis Ford Coppola, and we're talking about the theatrical cut, not the Redux version or the final cut. I will get into those later. However, I'm mainly going to focus on the theatrical cut because that's the one I most recently saw. What I really love about this movie is everything. I love everything about it. I don't even know where to start. I'm just going to have to go chronologically and then just go from there. Now, what does this movie do for me that separates it from other war movies like it? Even though it's kind of a gray area. Could you call it a war movie or just an action movie? Because from what I know, it's not based off of true events. And it was based off of a book called Hearts of Darkness. So you could debate whether or not it's a war movie if you want to classify it as one. I personally do, but if you don't want to, then that's fine. But anyways, getting back to what I feel separates this movie from other war movies like it. One thing is that I've seen this movie 3 times, the theatrical cut at least. I've seen it 3 times, and each time I pick up something new. And that's not something that I get from pretty much any war movie that I've seen. And that's something that I really value in this movie because as I'm rewatching it, I'm picking up different things about it that I didn't notice, and it makes the story so much better for me. And the story is fairly simple, but I'm not going to say what it is because I think it's a little bit better if you don't know what it is. And it's revealed pretty early on what it is, and there's lots of narration in this movie, just so you're not confused, and I never felt as though the narration in this movie held the movie back and made it unsubtle. There's plenty of things to read into, and I think that added a lot to the film, because as I pretty much mentioned, that upon revisiting it, I get more out of it. And that also has to do with the characters and how they're written. I really liked the performances as well, and Marlon Brando is great in this movie. He's not in it a lot, but when he's on screen, he steals it, and I really loved him in this movie. Martin Sheen, he's really good. Lawrence Fishburne is in this movie, and I really liked him as well. Pretty much our main group of characters, I didn't find them unlikable. I've really enjoyed watching them, and one thing that I really love is the first hour of this movie is actually not so horrific at all, or at least not all that much, as opposed to hour 2 and then the last 30 minutes. The first hour is fairly light, and what I mean by that is it's a pretty funny movie actually for the first hour, and there's great jokes, and I think it's really fun to watch. And when I say miracle, I mean that in the literal sense, that if anything was poorly handled, this movie would not work. And I never felt as though there was one scene in this movie that was poorly handled, and the action in this movie is great. It's really fun and sometimes horrific as we get closer to the end, and there's some horrific stuff that happens at the end. And just to keep this clear, when I say horrific, I don't mean as in they actively show the violence that's going on. Sometimes it's off screen and you have to figure out what the violence was on your own, even though it's pretty obvious when it's not shown. But what I want to get back to is the tone. It's starting out pretty light and having lots of jokes, and really you get a good sense of who these characters are. I think they're awesome and lots of fun to watch. And as the movie gets into the second act, that's when things start to, get more serious, because you're starting, things are actually happening in terms of consequences, and you really feel as though these characters being in this war is, they're in danger. You do not feel as though these characters are safe. I guess now I can sneak in a little review for the Redux version and the final cut. I've seen both of those. I haven't rewatched them in about a year, but I remember them pretty well. And I'm going to tell you the runtime for all of these cuts. The theatrical cut is the shortest, 2.5 hours. Then you have the Redux version that was released in like 2001 or something. That version is 3 hours, 19 minutes long. And the final cut that came out in 2018, I think, that version is 3 hours long. and I've seen all of them, and I think the theatrical cut is the best. And the scenes that are added in to the Redux version and the final cut do not need to be there, and they kind of ruin the pacing, especially in the Redux version. There's like 4 scenes that stood out to me as being different. One scene was like, there's a scene on a beach early on in the movie, and it's with a guy who's really obsessed with surfing, and he gets people to nuke the place and really just destroy their enemies so he can go surfing. I found that character to be really entertaining and really funny, and I think he might be my favorite character in the whole movie. He's just so much fun to me. What they added in to that scene was they steal his surfboard, and I thought that was pretty funny. And another scene that they added in was like, it was a scene where they go to a camp-based site where there's some nudity, and that scene didn't need to be there. And there was another scene where they bump into like, what was it, the French or something? I don't quite remember. I think that was in both. The stealing the surfboard and bumping into the French, those 2 elements are also in the final cut, and I didn't think they were necessary, although I don't hate those parts. The rain scene, the camp scene that took place in the rain, and apparently when that was shot, it was raining like crazy, and that's because there was a typhoon going on or something. And one other thing that they changed that I don't know if I'll get into the final cut in just a second. In the Redux, I remember they added in a scene at the end where you have Marlon Brando talking to our main character, and he's just reading to him as he's like locked in a cage or something. Those are the 4 things that stood out to me in the Redux version. But going back to the final cut, I wanted to mention something that was really weird. I don't have a 4K TV yet, and when I got this, I just popped in the Blu-rays that this came with, these 2. This disc has both the theatrical cut and Redux version. However, when I popped in the final cut, one thing that was really weird about this, and let me know down in the comments if you experienced this, but once I got about halfway through, like in that scene where they bump into the French, and it's at that dinner scene, and right when in the middle of the dinner scene and everyone's pretty much left that scene, the sound was like cut off and it never came back. And I was just thinking, was there something wrong with my TV, or what happened? I don't know what happened, and I was left with just half a movie with audio, and I even skipped back to make sure was it a glitch, and when I went back there was audio. When I moved forward, no audio from that point that I mentioned. So that was weird. And I'm not sure if the 4K disc has that problem. I'm hoping that it doesn't. So I'll watch the full final cut one day when I get a 4K TV. But for now, yeah, I just saw half of the final cut. So yeah, the edited scenes, I don't hate them, but they just don't need to be in the movie. With all that being said, I still think those alternate edits of the movie are good. I just don't think they're nearly as good as the theatrical cut, because those edited scenes kind of ruined the pacing. Not as much in the final cut. I thought it moved pretty well overall. But in the Redux version, it really dragged, and I was getting kind of impatient. But in the end, Apocalypse Now, I love it. It's my favorite war movie ever. And I'm always willing to rewatch this movie. It's never boring for me. I think the song choices are great. This Is the End is amazing in this movie. They use it so well. I love it. And even the actual score for the movie is great. I don't remember it right now, but I remember it being great and really effective. And I loved that at the end, the lighting choices. I loved what they did with the lighting choices. I can't say what they did because I don't want to spoil the movie. But I'll just say this, it was great. And I was really happy with what we got. The first time I watched this movie, I gave it like an 8 out of 10. It was kind of slow. I wish there was more to it, but as I rewatched it, it got much better for me, and I'm comfortable saying that this is my favorite war movie. and I'm also comfortable about doing this, and that is me giving Apocalypse Now a 10 out of 10. And I guess I'll give you my ratings for the other two versions. The Redux version, I would give either a 6 or a 7 out of 10. Haven't quite decided. I'm probably never going to rewatch that version. Maybe one day, but who knows. And the final cut, I would give, from what I've seen, I would give 8 out of 10. It was great. Didn't flow as well for me, but still great. So those are my thoughts on Apocalypse Now, all three versions, mainly the theatrical cut. And if you enjoyed this review, be sure to leave a like and comment down below what you thought of Apocalypse Now down below, and let me know what you thought of the other two cuts and what you thought about them, and which one is your favorite. I would like to know that. And my social media links, they will all be in the description down below, so follow me there. And last but not least, subscribe to be a part of Foley Nation, and I'll see you when I get my next review up, and it's for a movie that I haven't seen yet, but I'm looking forward to it, and it's pretty much my most anticipated movie to see. It's not a new release, but it's a movie that I've been wanting to see for a while. It is Stanley Kubrick's Barry Lyndon from 1975. I'm very excited to see it, but until I get that up, thank you for watching and have a great day.